everybody. Welcome to another Three Geeks Conversation. It's Jason. I'm joined today by Julian Bailey from the show Three Pines, which you remember we interviewed Anna Tierney last week. What was that interview process like? Do you guys have to audition together in a sense because you're playing husband and wife? Like, is there like a chemistry compatibility test or audition?
You know, as far as you can gauge chemistry or compatibility over Zoom, we did try to do that because it happened. I guess my final slate of auditions was in August of 2021, so we were still pretty much in the throes of the pandemic, and Anna and I met over Zoom, which is always kind of a little awkward because it is an audition, and you don't know if you're going to be getting the part or not. And you also know that she's been reading with all these other guys. So, you only assume that she has. And of course she did, and she had, which is totally normal. You do the read as best you can. You play your objectives and try to just, stay consistent with your eye lines and all that, which is one of the tricky things about doing a Zoom audition. But one funny thing that I should probably mention is in a Zoom audition, you can't really be looking at the person you're reading with because your eye line will get all messed up, So I got a glimpse of her on, in her little box on the computer. And then from there, it was like, you're just kind of in the scene and then you're finished the scene and you're kind of going, it was probably terrible, but you do what you can, man. So, yeah. And then I probably read with her once. And I think I read in a total of, well, including the original self-tape audition, I probably read a total of three times for my character, Peter Morrow. And then maybe I think I read for one other character in the middle of all that. So, yeah.
Is that pretty standard? 3 or 4 audition tapes?
It can be. I have had it where for, say, smaller roles, I've just done one audition, whether a self-tape or going in the room and auditioning. And for some reason, you get it like after one shot. But sometimes, I would say more often than not, especially back in LA, like back in the day, if it was for like a big network show or something, you would go in like multiple times and then finally go to read for the studio. And then you go to read for network. By which time you already have your contract all worked out and you know how much money you're going to be making. And that can be a little nerve-wracking, I guess, because you're literally walking into a room on the final, say, 2 auditions, the studio read and then the network read for TV anyway. You're walking into a room full of suits. I mean, just like, 15 people either in a little mini theater sitting there in their suits, just stone-faced, or a room where everybody's kind of lined up in these chairs that are set up in rows, and you're doing a comedy, let's say, and you got to make these people laugh. It's a trip, man. But yeah, pretty standard, I suppose.
I bet making them laugh for a comedy can be tough because they've seen so many people reading the exact same jokes.
Yeah. Good point. It's funny though, because it depends, I used to really enjoy doing callbacks for sitcoms, because you would get that instant reaction, that real-time reaction from the people most of the time who wrote, some of whom anyway in the room, who wrote the material. And so you're getting you're getting that real-time reaction, those laughs, which is really helpful when you're doing comedy, which I actually used to do quite a lot of back in the day, at least as far as I was up for a lot of comedy stuff. Probably didn't book as much as I had hoped or should have, but I remember I was up for this show that was a spin-off of that 70s show, and of course it was called That 80s Show, and I think it lasted about 1 season. I didn't get the part, but I was in the mix at the end. Apparently it was down to me and one other guy, but yeah, so I remember reading with those guys. I think Mark Brazil was one of the dudes or creators, and I think he was involved with that 70s show, probably was like the main guy, but don't quote me on that. I think that was his name. And I remember he was in there, dude. And just, yeah, you get that real-time reaction with comedy, which is really rewarding and fun. Yeah.
You've done voiceover, you've done acting. What made you want to get into film and be an actor, film and TV?
Well, it's probably there's probably a layered answer to that question, but I'll say the thing that kind of sparked it for me that I recall was when I was in elementary school. There was a kid there in my school who was on a TV show, and he was sort of like a bit of a mini celebrity, I guess. And I remember thinking, wow, that's really cool. Like, this kid is just, playing these characters, or, in this case, he was on this show that was on, I believe it was on this Canadian network called YTV. And yeah, and I remember thinking that was really cool. And I think that was the first time I kind of got the idea. And so I told my mom, who was a musician and was raising me to be a piano player, more or less. I mean, raising me in a musical kind of sense. I said, I think I'd like to sort of like put the piano to the side for a bit and focus on acting if I could. So when I was about 10 years old, I joined this group called the Children's Theater, and Children's Theater of Montreal, to be specific. And from there, I ended up getting referred for some voiceover auditions for some anime cartoons. And then after that, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation was doing a little Christmas film, and they came around scouting talent at schools just kind of randomly. And I guess I got scouted, and I ended up getting a lead role in this film. And then I did a play with the National Theatre School of Canada around that same time. So all these things, theater, voiceover, and TV, or TV/film, it was a made-for-TV movie, they all sort of coincided at the same time. And I ended up focusing more on the voiceover stuff for the next few years before I moved to Southern California when I was 18. And the voiceover stuff was cool because you kind of get the benefit of anonymity and being able to have a relatively normal childhood, despite missing probably a fair amount of school from working in studios and things like that. But you don't have the sort of the weird psychological stuff that can happen to a young person who thinks they're cooler than they necessarily are because, people recognize them or whatever. So I think I was fortunate to kind of dodge that potential bullet,
Because some childhood actors, they go through things that's rough because it's a lot of attention so young.
Exactly.
Do you have a favorite movie, TV show in general that you enjoy?
So as far as movies, I would say the standbys that I usually go to when people ask me that question are kind of old classics. I grew up in the 80s, so I have real nostalgic, clear memories of going to see E.T. and Back to the Future was another favorite of mine. And so as far as sentimental and kind of emotional favorites, Back to the Future, E.T., It's a Wonderful Life. I'm kind of a cheeseball, I guess. But I love those movies. I love Braveheart. There's other kind of indie films that I always really liked. There was a film called The Ice Storm that I really appreciated. That was an Ang Lee film from the late 90s. I loved Vincent Gallo's film Buffalo 66. These are just kind of throwing some stuff out there as far as movies that I've appreciated. So top of my list, I'd probably have to say, like, just as far as like entertainment value and just memories and nostalgia, I'd probably say E.T. and Back to the Future would be up top of the list. And then as far as television, like right now I'm really enjoying Yellowstone. I really enjoyed Homeland. And I really liked The Killing. That was a really good one. With Mireille Enos and Joel Kinnaman. So those are just some that come to mind. And then I'm sure that I'm going to be flooded with like a million other ones that will come to mind afterwards. And I'll be like, all right, should I mention that? But yeah, those are some that come to mind.
I need to watch Yellowstone. I started watching Three Pines. I'm enjoying it a lot so far. What's it like working with Alfred Molina?
I appreciate that. It's amazing, man. He's just like, he's like a real, first of all, he's a real actor. Secondly, he's a real star. Thirdly, he's a real actor. Well, I said that already. I was going to say he's a real character actor, but leading man. He's become a leading man, but he just knows how to hold himself and how to run a set more or less. He was also an EP, an executive producer on this show. So, or he is, I should say. And so, because of that, you know, he does have sort of another level of clout, and not that he would need it, because I mean, he's Alfred Molina. You know, I think that you know, him being Alfred Molina stands on its own. You know, he doesn't have to sort of have the title of EP to swing any extra clout or anything. But he's just he's just such a cool guy, man. He's just like really nice, man, and really genuine. He's not fake at all. He's not superficial at all. And he's just an absolutely primo cream of the crop actor, you know. So it was just an incredible privilege and honor to be working with him.
Well, before you get out of here, I do have one more question. So when you sit down to be a part of a TV show, especially something like this where it's mystery, you don't have to go into any details or specifics as far as story goes, but do they tell you ahead of time, like kind of where your character is going? Like, okay, this is kind of where we foresee the character going. If there's multiple seasons, then maybe this, and this will happen. Or is there really none of that?
It's an interesting question. I mean, the short answer is no, but the fact is, you know, we are adapting this from novels. There are 18 out now, as far as I know, 18 novels. The last one just came out very recently. So you can trace in the books, you can kind of track where things are going, you know, with the character and with all the characters in the books. Whether they're going to stay true to that, I suppose remains to be seen. But other than that, no, I mean, you know, you have the scripts, and yeah, you get, I mean, we got the scripts and shot them in reverse. So we shot the first ones. Well, sorry, we shot the last ones first, and then we shot the first ones last. We just went in reverse. And I'm trying to remember if we even got all the scripts at once. I feel like we must have, but I'm sort of not remembering that right now, whether we did or not. But we at least got them, you know, in time to prepare for the upcoming episode that we would be filming. And yeah, I don't know. You kind of fly by the seat of your pants in that sense, I suppose.
My last question: did you read the books, or do you kind of just want to make the character your own?
Well, both. I mean, you know, you want to. Well, first of all, I say both, but I haven't read all the books. When I got cast, it was reasonably soon before we started principal photography, so I didn't really have a lot of time to dive in and kind of like, you know, absorb the character from the books. Once we were kind of rolling, and the director and the producers and I had already established certain things about my character, like for example, his clothing, his outfits, his wardrobe, his hairstyle, things like that. Those were I would say premeditated or kind of prepared choices that I wasn't necessarily in on at the outset. And then once, you know, we got to talking, you know, we could kind of massage a little bit of those options. And but they specifically wanted me to keep my hair long as it was. And I was about to start a movie that summer, and I got a call from my agent saying, look, you're up for 3 Pines. They want you to not touch your beard, not touch your hair. So I had a pretty big beard at the time, but I had to negotiate because the production I was working on didn't want me to have a full beard. So we brought the beard down and more or less kept the hair long. And as you can see in the show, I kind of have about a 5 o'clock shadow and then the long hair. So those weren't really like necessarily my designs. But, you know, I kind of tried to work with, you know, the way they saw the character and their vision for him, like physically. But as far as all the internal stuff and that kind of thing, that's the more important stuff, and that's the stuff that we really tried to hone in on to go, well, what drives this guy, what's he about, and the material in the screenplays is amazing, just as it is in the books, although of course we adapted it to be a little bit different than the books, if readers of the books will probably attest to or notice. So no, I haven't read all the books. I'm hoping to, and you know, I'm enjoying them, you know, but no, I can't say like Anna Tierney, who played Clara. She read like all the books before even starting the show because she had time to do that, and she's probably a fast reader. I'm not a fast reader. I really gotta go slow and absorb the information. So
yeah, me too. 17 books is a lot, or 18 books is a lot.
Right, 18 now. Yeah, 18 now. So yeah, but I'm looking forward to, you know, getting more into them and stuff. I really enjoy the books, you know. Hopefully we get a second season, but regardless, you know, I love Louise Penny's writing, and I think it would be a great opportunity for many people involved to keep going with this thing, because I think I think it's been received quite well, and it's just really rich material, and I think it's important, especially in the times we're living in, to tell stories like this.
It is very good so far. I've watched the first 2 episodes. It's fantastic. I can't wait to get more into it. But thank you so much for joining us. Where can everybody find you online?
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. Well, I would say Instagram is the main place that, as far as social media goes, that would be I am Julian Bailey I am Julian Bailey. That's Instagram. I am sort of been trying to start a Twitter, although I'm kind of a bit intimidated by the whole Twitter thing. But that's also I am Julian Bailey. I have like 11 followers on there now. But yeah, mostly Instagram. I am Julian Bailey.
Awesome. You're going to have 12 at the end of the show. Thank you again so much for tuning in. Everybody, please like, subscribe, and follow at 3 Geeks J, at 3 Geeks Podcast. We'll see you.